We're live.
Looks good.
Yes.
About 15 seconds.
All right, 15 seconds away,
You
y'all.
good? All right, that's Jazz Cats out of New Orleans from their album New Orleans 2. Thank you again, Robin, for bringing us some New Orleans right here to the Bay Area. That is the real deal. Love that CD, cannot stop listening to it. Hey, guys and gals, right here. It is 3:50 in the land of Oz and city of Vallejo. You're tuned into the Metro with your host, I on OzCat Radio, 89.5 FM, KZCT, Vallejo, California's community radio station. And in the studio with me and soon to be on the air is candidate for Congress for the 5th District, Nils Paulson. Welcome, Nils.
Thank you, Billy. Glad to be here.
Wonderful to have you here. And just to give folks a little bit of background, you are a teacher and a community advocate, a science teacher.
I'm a science teacher. That's one of my couple of jobs. Can you hear me okay?
A little closer to the mic would probably.
Yeah, like that?
Yeah, like that.
All right.
All right. And
Yes, sir. Science teacher, and I also work with a sustainability nonprofit. Oh.
okay, so you are no stranger then to working with the community.
Totally, yeah. I've been a grassroots organizer my entire whole life. Ooh, I feel like I can hear that.
We can hear that one. Now,
Yeah,
that's going to work better. Okay.
All right, we got a little mic switch.
So let's repeat the last part. We're going to hit rewind. So you're a science teacher,
Sure.
former history teacher.
Yeah, former public
Community
school history
advocate.
teacher.
Okay.
Yes, sir. I work with an environmental sustainability resilience nonprofit in Sonoma County. I teach anatomy to adults, and I've been a history teacher in public school.
All right, right on. And so you're no stranger to working with the public, with the community.
Totally.
And want to ask you real quickly, folks, I have checked out Nils's website. He is one of the good guys, and I'm super glad to have him on the show.
Thank you for recognizing that. That's great.
But I'm going to approach this interview as though I'm an undecided voter, which I always am until I send in the absentee ballot.
Hopefully there still are some of those out there.
Yes, and so I think I'm decided, but I'm going to treat this conversation as though I'm an undecided voter. So I'm going to act like I know nothing.
Beginner mind.
Sometimes that's not acting. You're running as a Democrat or as an independent?
I'm running as an independent.
Okay.
I did run as a Democrat in 2016. I was a Bernie-crat, running
Right.
Bernie blue. But now I'm running no party preference this time. I'm trying to build some bridges and unite all the people out there who've had enough.
Excellent, because I guess seeing the D can be a turnoff to some people. Or
I mean, it automatically turns some people on, turns some people off. Last time, we have a 10-term Democratic incumbent in this district right now, right? So last time I was challenging him as a Democrat, and in the top 2 primary in June 2016, the second spot went to a Republican. So
Right.
Republicans. This time there is no Republican in the race.
I noticed that. There's 4 in all in this race, correct?
That's right.
4 candidates? Okay, very good. Running as an independent. But when you did run as a Democrat, you got a nice surprise, didn't you? A cool endorsement. There was
Is there specific something you're fishing for? I mean, I
read it on your website that it's like you received an endorsement from a Dem.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Some music to build up this story.
Yeah, all right. Please allow me to.
Yeah.
All right. So I ran as a Democrat in 2016, and all the Democratic clubs hold their endorsement meetings. This time around, as an independent, the Democratic clubs aren't trying to invite, independents to come speak. But I went in 2016 and spoke with in Vallejo with the United Democrats of Southern Solano County, which they have a long tradition of endorsing the Democratic incumbent, Mike Thompson.
And staying with the status
Right,
quo.
staying with but I spoke to the group live, and I seemed to reach them because for the very first time in the club's history, they didn't endorse Mike Thompson. There was no endorsement issue, which for me felt like a victory. The group was split, so I blocked them.
That is a little victory. Yeah, and so when I read that, I thought, ooh, this guy's kind of a badass if he's able to do that. So let us learn more.
I'm a mirror, so whatever you think I am, maybe you're that.
Maybe. Now, you have an interesting backstory. We're not going to have time to go through the entire run, but it's a fascinating, candid
How many
read.
days you got?
Yeah, right. Nilsforcongress.com is where you can read this, and I would
NILS.
NILS. 4 is like FOR. Okay, none of that Prince drive here. And Congress, we hope everyone can spell that. Congress.com. And you can read the backstory. One of the things I found very fascinating in your backstory was that moment of realization that you were going to run. Now you're in Washington, D.C., if I read correctly.
Sure, you did your homework.
And I tried. And you, like many of us would, you want to visit your congressman or congresswoman,
right,
or whatever the case may be. And you are able to visit Mike Thompson.
Sure.
Do you want to take it from here?
Yeah, okay. I'm grateful. Like, I'm coming with all due respect. I'm not
because he's a respectable man. He's an honorable man. Wouldn't we agree? Or we'll get into that.
I mean, but there's a question of how honorable it is to be, taking super amounts of money.
That may not be so honorable.
But you know what? That's also, I like, with all due respect, right? Because that's the paradigm we're coming from. We're coming from these huge money in politics. That's where we've been, just kind of like in the past we were in a place of, slavery and women not being able to vote. And then we're moving to an era where actual human beings representing the families and communities of a given district are elected.
But there is a generation of, well, that's just the way it's always been.
Right, and it is the way it's always been. Just like once upon a time, slavery was the way it's always been. Right.
So you walk into.
So I walk into the office. Okay. I'm grateful for the opportunity to have met Mike Thompson, and I know he's done a lot for constituents, especially like someone's not getting their pension, they write a letter to their congressman, and Mike's helped get things resolved like on a person-to-person basis. So I honor that. Mm-hmm. I honor that I was able to get a meeting with the guy. And I expressed my concern as a millennial, as like a as a dad, as a person in student debt, as a person concerned about climate change. What's going to happen for
as a science teacher, that would be you're not buying into this climate change as a hoax. I'm hoping,
and it's not enough to just be a Democrat, right? I mean, we need bold leadership, and so you probably saw on my website, I lost my father to cancer, and we lost our family.
I did see that. My condolences.
We lost our family home to for-profit medical system, Medicare bills. And, so I expressed some of these concerns, like what about wealth inequality? What about, mass incarceration and, police brutality? And it felt to me like I was getting the brush off. And I especially brought the question of, what about money in politics?
Right, and that was the moment, the epiphany, right? Like Paul on the road to Damascus for you.
And the direct quote was, "You'll never get money out of politics."
Yeah.
And I said internally at that moment, "Challenge accepted."
Wow.
It's a tall order. But it's the challenge of our times. If we want action on these issues that matter most to so many of us, which include education, peace, healthcare, wage, wealth equality, and living, thriving wages, we're going to need to eliminate the stranglehold that corporate lobbyists have on our political system. So it's going to take public financing of elections and some serious reform to the way money and politics interact. We need to essentially get rid of the Citizens United regime of corporations being treated like people, money being treated like free speech. That is like anathema to our actual democracy.
It does take some money to run for Congress, though. I once read it. I forget what the total. Someone said $500,000 to run a campaign, or a minimum 50,000.
I mean,
somewhere, and that's a big range in between.
I feel like if I could hit that, I would have no problem.
Which one, $500,000 or 50,000?
I mean,
either
really,
or
50,000, 100,000. So I'm at like an order of magnitude lower than that. So for me to get on the ballot costs a couple of grand.
Okay.
To get your 250-word statement sent home to voters all throughout the entire district cost about 10 grand. And that doesn't count yard signs. That doesn't count, other types.
I mean,
of
that's just the tip of the iceberg.
So
there,
that's
right?
and that's
Right.
that's the minimum to be a viable candidate. You could not do the candidate statement, like the other challengers didn't do their candidate statement. They didn't have the funds for that. So, but I'm like on the Bernie Sanders model of raising small donations, $27 donations, and definitely closer to $10,000 as an actual campaign budget, closer to that than 50,000. With 50,000, I feel like we would be incredibly victorious.
So let me ask you this then.
It's unfortunate to even have the concept of tying victory to money when
If there
right?
were a very eco-friendly corporation, one that is like can't see anything that they're really doing any wrongdoing, and they offered you a donation for your candidacy, would you refuse it?
I mean, unfortunately, I haven't had to come up against that, right? But yeah, the question of what if the most awesome solar company is like, hey, I want to back you. And I mean,
does that bring in the danger though? And this is a little soul searching here on your part.
Sure.
Does that bring in the danger of bringing money into politics?
Well, right. And one way or another, money is in politics. And right now, there's individuals contributing at $5, $10, $20,
and you're
maybe $100.
And that's something that I could
$200.
see with your platform you're comfortable with.
Right, for sure. I mean, somehow you got to get on the ballot and have some gesture toward doing public outreach. I'm not sending glossy mailers and wasting paper doing that, but so an individual human being is limited to $2,700 as a political donation.
Right.
And I think that's plenty. And I think if a corporation, quote unquote, wanted to support me, I would rather just have the human beings do it rather than the company itself.
I understand. It keeps it less murky that way, doesn't
totally.
it?
So that's why I've forsworn corporate donations, and definitely PACs, super PACs, all this crazy, these lobbyists, which if you go online and search on the Federal Election Commission website, there's a lot of information that is public about where politicians get their money. You can research me and you'll see no one's even donated close to that maximum amount. And you can research the existing politicians out there and see, a history of, millions of dollars over the years of getting money from these weapons manufacturers, etc.
Now, our current Congressman Mike Thompson, he's accepted money from large corporations, correct?
I mean,
what would be an example of a corporation?
Like Lockheed Martin or Northrop Grumman or Raytheon or Honeywell. These are military weapons manufacturers.
Right.
The military industrial complex that Eisenhower warned us about.
Right. What is the reality of accepting a donation from one of these and then forgetting all about them and then voting your conscience? I mean, I'm sure
that's
you're not
hypothetical. That's like a rhetorical question for the listeners, right? Like how likely would it be for?
I mean, is that always a possibility? Take the money and run.
I don't know. I don't buy it.
You don't buy it. You think you're in their pocket. Or not you. One is in the corporation's pocket.
I think if one is taking a lot of money from, right now we're using the example of military weapons manufacturer giants, then one is probably more likely to go along with the flow of endless war and less likely to take a stand for just foreign policy and peace.
Favors will be owed.
Right, sure.
Right.
And so if we're talking about wanting something like Medicare for all, if we're talking about wanting universal, single payer healthcare that's going to leave no one in the cold, that's going to, people can go and get top quality treatment. We're wanting the system for America to catch up with the rest of the world. Well, then we can look at donations that are coming in from health insurance giants like Aetna and Blue Cross and big pharmaceutical giants like Merck. And then the question again, how likely are we going to get full leadership from...
Take the money and run from the big corporations and then screw them for having done that.
That would be,
that would be almost like poetic justice. That'd make you a Robin Hood.
Right, but then I'd want to be seeing some awesome YouTube video from your representative saying, "Guess what? I just took a bunch of money from the pharmaceutical and health insurance giants, and now I'm leading the charge on universal health care for the people." But we're not getting that. What we're getting is tacit acceptance of the status quo and silence, and it's frustrating.
And bless your heart for trying to go up against that, because the way I described it before you came on was almost like David versus Goliath.
Oh, I've used that image. For sure.
Oh, I'm sure you have, and you must feel that way. Now, when it comes to voters here in the 5th Congressional District.
Yes, sir. Yes, brother.
Thank you. Sir makes me feel like I'm your dad or something. When it comes to that, do you think voters are most concerned with you had mentioned, Mike helping someone get, Congressman Thompson helping someone get their pension check that's late. Which do you think voters are most concerned with? How their congressperson can help them with local matters, fixing local problems, or how they vote on a national scale? Which do you think is of greater importance to the average voter?
I mean, based on what I hear from most folks, is they've had enough. They've had enough. And really, when I talk about money in politics, folks get it. Like, they're like,
so you're
thank
saying
you for leading with that.
The national level is probably of greater importance.
Except though, like I was
The
just
voting
recently,
records.
I had a conversation with the Vallejo Chamber of Commerce, and they ended up going through and endorsing Mike Thompson. But they heard us out. They heard the candidates. They invited us all in. I spoke with them, and they asked this type of question, like, how are you going to get money for us to dredge the silt and in the water, and like. And the same thing with like the editorial board from the Press Democrat in Sonoma County called me, and they're like, how are you going to get money for our fire rebuild? And that's a part of it. Like I constituent services, bringing money into the district. I'm not trying to ignore that. What I'm trying to say is that whoever's there will hopefully be doing that, to be like championing the cause of some of our local crises that we're facing. And at the same time, the job of the House of Representatives is to set national law. And it's almost like its own crisis that every time a bill seems to be going through Congress, all the representatives are trying to jam in the money for their pet projects, the pork barrel spending. And it's like, trying to get money for this bridge and for that. And like, can we just please create a just system that works for everybody in this country, for all our families? Can we deal with things like human rights and with the wage inequality crisis, and can we deal with climate crisis in a way that rebuilds green infrastructure and gets people working in every district around the country?
Well, we were playing some New Orleans music earlier, and it makes me think of New Orleans' own Louis Armstrong and the song "What a Wonderful World It Would Be."
Love that song.
Yeah, well, and that is kind of the world you speak of. I mean, I'm with you on that one. And I know there's a lot of, that idealism, I hate to even call it idealism, but at this point it's still more the ideal than reality. But that idealism, it's like we saw the flame almost become reality with the Bernie campaign a couple of years ago.
Totally.
And you're writing that way. I'm sure you had that fire in you before Bernie came along, but he definitely seems to have sparked the inspiration for a few people to run for office who may not otherwise.
Oh, it is by all means happening all around the country, and there's a movement taking place. And it was great. The story you alluded to earlier, when I went to Washington D.C. in 2015 and sort of decided to run. I traveled back through New York City where I did my undergraduate work, and I was staying at a friend's place in New York on my way back, and it was 2 days later. And Bernie Sanders declared that he was running for president. At the time, this little-known, obscure, Vermont independent senator that people have rarely heard of. And it has galvanized the movement. And now you see Our Revolution and the Justice Democrats and the Movement for a People's Party, and there are all these, sort of amazing progressive movements that are rising up to support brand new Congress, candidates all around the country that are doing this work. Because whoever, not only do we need a Congress in there to resist the whatever type of unjust or fascist agenda might be happening in Washington right now, whoever we elect in 2020, to kind of carry this torch forward, whether it's Bernie or another sort of leader of the people, we're going to need a Congress that's going to get the laws passed.
Right.
The Congress is where it's at. Like, there's 3 branches of government, and the Congress is the one that legislates.
Right. So, and it seems as though it's been so dysfunctional and so almost like dead weight, all 3 branches have been of late. It does bring to mind the presidency. And I know Bernie was an inspiration.
Sir.
Is the... All right, lad. Was having... someone as Donald Trump in the office of president, was that also an inspiration to run? Like, you're so appalled, so aghast that it's like, I got to get in here and make this better. Was that a deciding factor as well?
Well, I've heard some interesting things about Donald Trump. I mean, one thing that seemed to resonate with me recently was that Trump was the wrong answer to the right question. And I believe
okay,
that a
fair
lot
enough.
of folks out there who voted for Trump, I mean, given I'm sure there's like, a kind of fascist, right nationalist, racist sort of group out there that would,
But not everyone.
I think a lot of people, it might have even been folks who would have voted for Bernie if they had the chance. They were just trying to say, F the system. And Donald was campaigning on this idea of, draining the swamp and getting, I mean, kind of even the rhetoric of getting money out of politics. And
Mm-hmm.
like, talking about, Goldman Sachs and starting to use that like a derogatory term. And then, of course, as he became president, he ended up, appointing, Exxon CEO.
Right.
I mean, like, so of course he's
there was
got all
that
these bank execs.
Yes.
But he was campaigning on this sort of populist thing. So that's, I think, what motivated a lot of people to turn out for Trump. And the other thing that sort of seemed true for me about Trump was the analogy that he's like an alarm clock. And the sound of your alarm clock might not necessarily be the most pleasant thing. The point is, though, when you hear it, to get up.
Right.
So like right now it's this horrible clash, and that's like every day, like the Trump alarm going off, and
But it is kind of a call to arms, isn't it?
Sure, and he's a symptom. Like we can't. I'm not, by no means would I be like try to blame it all on Donald Trump, but absolutely like a symptom of the turning point, that the sort of crisis.
Well, it's probably a symptom of many things on many levels. I mean, I'm sure Jung and Freud would probably have a field day as much as any political scientist would.
Right.
With it, I mean, it's pretty all-encompassing.
Yeah. So that does inspire me to move on this, by all means. I mean, as a dad, and even if I wasn't, as a person who cares about the seventh generation, that motivates me and inspires me to actually be a part of the solution, the change. Because we got mega work to do.
Yeah, we do.
It's really, crucial times right now that we're living in.
And so given a very thoughtful way that you described Trump's rise and acknowledging the areas of gray rather than just solely black and white. I mean, I have no doubt if we were to look at a Venn diagram, there's probably people who voted for Obama who voted for Trump. Once again, wanting some sort of meaningful change.
Sure.
Do you find that is one reason why running as an independent might be a way to reach out to some of those Obama-Trump voters?
Sure, absolutely. And there's also that old saying, like, the enemy of my enemy is my friend. And right now, the fact is, there's not a Republican on the ballot. Probably the most, quote unquote, conservative person on the ballot in this race is the incumbent. And then there's 3 independents, essentially, one green and 2 no party independents that are coming to be the people's challenger here. And
I kind of see you as the main challenger, just given that you've done this before. You received some pretty credible endorsements last time around. I'm sure you're going to receive even more some this time around.
Thanks for seeing that.
So, I mean, it's like if ever you and Mike Thompson want to come on the air and hash it out on here, you guys are more than welcome to.
That would be great. I mean, really, he stands to gain very little from participating in
I realize that.
Forum, so I don't blame the sort of like ghostly disappearance.
Of course.
But yeah, my invitation's there too, and there's been much conversation in the community about the absence of any real debate. And I'm not trying to kick and scream against it. All I can do is stand here and share my truth and speak my integrity. So that's what I'm doing.
Let's go back to local affairs,
please,
for one moment. You're from Santa Rosa now, correct? That's that area?
Yeah, I mean, born in San Francisco, but I've been living in this district since.
But currently in Santa Rosa. What I'm getting at is
living in Santa Rosa.
There's a point. The fire.
Yeah.
Now you were affected by that. And that was that's a local catastrophe of great magnitude that we suffered through. Our area did not all that long ago. Now, as a congressman, how would you describe Mike Thompson's response on that?
Okay, and even before the Santa Rosa fire in October, there was the Valley Fire in 2015.
Of course.
And that's the one that displaced me from my home in Lake County. So I was living up there, and then that fire came, and literally, like, the smoke, the fire, the destruction.
So this was like nightmare deja vu when the Santa Rosa fire started.
Totally. And the Valley Fire, was comparatively, it was a completely different experience because my daughter was traveling at the time of the Valley Fire, so I didn't have that like protector thing of like.
Oh my gosh!
So it was like automatic to roll my sleeves up.
Yes,
and, like,
of course.
We talked earlier before the show started about community radio in Lake County. So KPFZ, Lake County Community Radio, the spot basically just like OzCat here, turned into the hub of the community response, because Lake County, rural, everyone's, sort of spread out across the lake, and everyone's got their radio.
It tells you about the importance and power of community radio.
Oh,
something right there.
Completely
powerful tool, right?
Absolutely, preparedness in a box. Yeah. So right. That fire displaced me, and then I ended up where I was already working and where my daughter was starting preschool in Sonoma County. And then this fire happened, and when the Sonoma County fire happened, my daughter was in town, and I woke up, and all I could do was get her out of there. So I gotta get her out. So,
right.
So
as any parent would.
Right, as any parent would. And that fire didn't burn my house down. I didn't lose my place, but absolutely, it's the people who are still living it as a daily reality in Sonoma County. My friends and neighbors lost their places.
And some are still in is it FEMA? FEMA
There are
trailers and such.
people living in temporary housing in hotels, staying with friends, renters who emigrated out of Santa Rosa completely. There's issues with water being polluted from
Now, okay, so let's take this fire. Tell me, what is a congressperson's role?
Right.
When a catastrophe like that happens, as far as what's within his or her power, as far as the way he or she can help their constituents.
Well, I mean, I guess one thing a person could do is, to sort of ride in and, say some words. And that's definitely one thing that I've seen, or seen evidence.
You witnessed.
I witnessed
Okay.
in the wake of the Valley Fire, I witnessed all manner of politicians showing up for a brief afternoon and driving through and then saying a few words.
Which is kind of like plenty of nothing.
Right. Yeah. Thanks for that.
Okay.
Have fun going back to your chalet of safety.
Yeah.
There is getting money for the rebuild. I mean, and that's on the community. That is on elected officials to make sure that FEMA and other government entities are investing in the change. And then there's a step higher, and this is the next step of vision and integrity that I would like to see from my leadership, and that is addressing the root cause of all of this, which has everything to do with resource depletion, drought, climate change, climate crisis, and creating a resilient response, which includes creating communities that are prepared. So investing in not just crisis response, getting money to rebuild stuff, but also investing in resilient infrastructure that is, fire resistant, and investing in preparedness, and doing something very meaningfully to combat climate change.
So thinking on a higher level that
yeah.
might make it's not always preventable, but at least making it so it's more palatable, or it is not as catastrophic as it turned into. Correct?
I mean, the way that industrial agriculture has been, draining the land, draining our
Of course.
I mean, that sets us up to be ripe for these fires.
Yeah, and so like you said, you have to deal with it on a higher level, not just being responsive.
It's kind of like the metaphor of it's like a kind of crappy, dark one, but of if there's dead babies floating down a river. God, I can't believe I'm saying this, but it's if there's they're floating down the river, or people who are drowning is maybe a better one. Floating down. Okay, you save them. You save them one at a time. These people, but at some point, someone's got to go upstream and see where are these kids coming from,
and why are they drowning?
Right.
Or why? Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It's a matter of, do you continue to just be reactive, or do you start to be proactive?
Right.
To cut it down?
So yeah, this guy's helping you get your pension check. You write your congressman and get the pension check that's been late in coming to you, or you're maybe getting a certificate for winning an art competition or something. But how about creating an actual economy that works for everybody, where we're actually sharing our resources a little bit more equitably? So we're talking about an actual policy shift that favors the 99%.
Right. I want to ask you one last thing. We got a couple minutes left, and then I also wanted you to have a little bit of airtime to say whatever you'd like to say.
I'm loving just
cool.
conversing with this
girl. A singer from my decade and before, folk singer, named Joan Baez. I'm not sure if you're familiar with her. She was married to a guy named David Harris, who was jailed, in fact, for being a draft resistor. And David Harris eventually decided to run for, it was either Congress or Senate, either House of Representatives or Senate, I should say. And Joan Baez was interviewed about this. And she said her response was, if someone is decent, why put them in office? Now, having been to Washington, D.C., having spent some time there, it is a seductive city. Once you're around power like that, it can seduce the best of them. What is it in you that you think you could resist that? I mean, because sometimes there is often this duel that goes on within us. I know this is with my own work in community activism, between, is this a pure reason that I'm doing this, or is ego taking over? And how do you resist that once you get to a city like Washington, D.C.? What can you tell us about yourself that makes you a little protected from that you may have some armor against that?
That's an awesome question.
Thank you.
I'm a human being, so you're
Okay.
right. You're talking about something that, like, that's the old Solzhenitsyn quote, like the line between good and evil is, runs through every human heart. It's like, my motivation is my daughter, and is all our, seventh generation, all our children. And I mean, the level of consciousness that I feel like we need to be at as a people is to recognize that we all share this earthship. We're all in this boat together. We share this economy, even not just in America, but like around the world. This is something that we're sharing with all creatures. We all depend on the water. We all, need food and shelter. And the future generations are looking at us right now and the choices that we make. And I don't have any desire to be in a protected bubble where I've got mine, and the other people don't. I don't want that. So, I mean, I can say that, and at the end of the day, a person can believe it or not. But I'm not the millionaire in this race, and I'm not. There's many different folks in history who have said this in the past in different ways. But I think it's FDR said, the only way you can get rich in office is if you're a crook. And I'm not that. The people need to be out there to hold our elected officials accountable. So when they start to drift, to actually hold their feet to the fire, and when they aren't serving our needs and community, to fire them. Mm-hmm. Congress there's a 2-year term for a reason. And like some people are out there serving 10 terms, 20 terms. There's people on Congress who've been there for like 3, 4 decades. It was
not meant to be a lifetime Supreme Court position, was it?
Right? It's like, right. So there's a learning curve. You get to Washington, and I'm sure it's like a blur, and you get there and you're trying to learn this whole new system. Mm-hmm. Then maybe based on that, like, it makes sense to have a couple of terms. But really, at the end of the day, the point is to do some good. And if I wasn't doing good, I would hope that, democracy would prevail, and, fire whoever's not doing the good and hire someone from the community who's going to do it.
Right.
And I mean, you'll know them by their fruits. Like, the proof will be in my actions. And if they're not in integrity with what the community needs, inform me. And if that doesn't work, fire me. And I'm willing to lose, I'm, at the end of the day, for what I believe in, willing to lose my life, let alone a job. So, like, I'm not going to compromise my truth in order to, stay in political power. That's like, that's not what a man of integrity or a person of integrity does.
It truly isn't.
Right.
It truly isn't. And like I said, Nils, when I read your website and through your backstory, I thought, wow, this is one of the good guys. And now that I've met you, it's absolutely solidified that sentiment. So just want to remind folks, you can read more about Nils's backstory and what he stands for at Nils, Nils, for Congress, FOR, Congress, CONGRESS.
What a man.
That's a former elementary school teacher coming out of it. NilsForCongress.com. And Nils, while we have a couple minutes left, any word, any shout out to any statement you'd like to say? Because I know you have probably many who are tuned in right now.
Oh yeah, totally. We're in addition to this great show that's live on OSCAT, we're live streaming on Facebook, and this will be a video that'll be on.
So I'm going to let you take us up to our 420 break, which we celebrate every day.
Oh, all right. What time we got now?
We're at about 420.
Oh, all right.
424, but don't worry.
I guess what I would say is, since we're over here in the East Bay right now too, and this is a huge district, folks are probably already aware in many ways, but it goes all the way from, I live like on the western border of District 5 over in Santa Rosa. It goes all the way north to the southern tip of Lake County, all the way over here to Vallejo, Benicia, Martinez, Pinole. And I've got some events that are coming up here, and one that I'm really excited about that we're just beginning to sort of put the finishing touches on is at an art gallery in Benicia called the Gen Tough Gallery. And if folks want to mark their calendars, this is going to be coming up on the 27th of May. And it's a Sunday evening from 5 to 7 p.m. And this gallery is beautiful. I was there for
Which gallery again?
It's called the Gen Tough, Tough.
Is that right along First Street, or
no?
is
It's on the Arsenal.
Oh, it's in the Arsenal.
Yeah,
okay.
and I went to the Open Studios in Benicia, and like shout out to all the artists in Benicia, and like I love the independent flow of Benicia and Vallejo, and like the community of independent thinkers and artists. And I went to the Open Studios in Benicia, and it was so great. I got to like meet the artist community, and I'm doing this event at a gallery, and it's going to be great. So I encourage folks to come out and like meet me in person. I'm also planning to be at a lot of the upcoming farmers markets in Vallejo on Saturday. And I'm like, this Saturday I'll be at the Pinole Farmers Market. Next Saturday, Vallejo.
Benicia does theirs on Thursday if you're able to make it.
Totally, yeah. So I think a week
Thursday
from Thursday.
Thursday evening,
I'll be
right?
There. Yeah. So I there's a lot of listings of my upcoming events and things like that. I've kind of got like tour dates set up on the website. So check out nilsforcongress.com.
And the social media. I was going to.
Yeah, you want me to?
I was going to ask. Is social media is going to be a powerful tool for this campaign? I would imagine.
Yeah, well, it's cool, and the truth is that, and there are people watching right now. The truth is, it relies on your shares too, and like because we've seen with the Cambridge Analytica scandal and all of that, like social media can be used in sort of a crooked way as well. And there are some political forces out there that have a tremendous amount of corporate lobbyist money to do these boosted posts and to be investing in like knowing, researching what you like and manipulating it in kind of a cruel way. And me, I'm part of communities online where I share my information, and then it's grassroots. Like, are you folks watching this right now? Like, are you willing to share it out? Share it in your local progressive communities, or I'm not even trying to keep it limited to one political dimension. Like there are conservatives out there who have had enough of money in politics as well and want to have someone who's going to be faithful to our families and communities. So whatever aspect of the political spectrum you belong to, it is grassroots. So folks can find Nils Paulson, NILS. Just start searching that out. PALSSON.
You're on the ballot for this June.
Yes, sir. Yes, brother. He's like, don't call me sir. God damn it.
And
June
5th. And out of the 4, one will. How does that work now?
It is a top 2 primary.
It's a top 2,
very similar to the
okay.
governor's race. So the top 2, it doesn't matter what party you're in. So it's not like you're a Democrat, so you vote in the Democratic primary. Any people vote for anybody in any party.
And the top 2 will be in the general in November.
So this June is really important to send a message that like, okay, the people are standing up, get ready. There's something coming big in November.
Well, I have a feeling you're going to be one of the 2. Well, so will you come back and visit us again?
Acknowledging that, I have a feeling too, and I hope may it be so. I hope that the folks turn out. And one last announcement.
Yeah, but I asked you.
You're holding me low.
You will come back after.
I'll come back anytime. They'll have me on here, my man.
Right.
I love community radio. This is the spot. I just wanted to also let folks know that May 21st is the deadline to register to vote, and it's it's one of those that's one of those kind of tweaks we need to be making in our system. That why can you not just show up and vote on the day of? And there are some counties and states around the world around the country that are starting to pioneer this same day voting registration. Because if you hear about this great people's candidate who's standing up for universal health care,
finally say, hey man, I'm gonna stop this apathy. I'm gonna go out and vote for the first time in 20 years.
You're not registered.
That's such a buzzkiller. Yeah.
So folks, right now as it is, you got to be registered a couple weeks in advance. So May 21st, make sure to register to vote. You can register to get your absentee ballot. Send your ballot in early. At a lot of these campaign events that I'll be doing, we're going to be doing like on the spot absentee voting. So folks can fill out your ballot, take a picture of it, and send it on in together. But yeah, it is grassroots. So social media, Nils Paulson. I'm on Twitter and Instagram and all that good stuff. So
good deal. Well, let's make this happen.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you so much for having me on here. I really feel honored, Billy.
Pleasure and privilege was mine. Thank you so much for choosing this show.
It's shared, if anything.
All right.
Thanks to the people of Vallejo. Much respect for this place.
Right on.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you so much, Nils.
Thank you, brother.
You are tuned in to the Metro here on OzCat Radio, 89.5 FM KZCT, Vallejo, California's community radio station, where times are often approximate, as you're about to find out.
All right. Whew. Thanks for joining, y'all. Much respect. Take a moment, share it out if you're willing. And if you're just tuning in, the interview just ended, but I'm going to share it on the page, so it'll still exist.
At the tone,
Respect.
OzCat Radio time will be approximately 4:20.